Hi guys, welcome to the Overdrive Digital Show. I know it's been a while since we've been able to meet you guys live on the show, but in the past few weeks we've been very busy bringing you stories. We will be bringing you these stories from the track and even off track. Most importantly, evaluating all the cars and two wheelers launched in 2021, all EVs as well for the 20th Overdrive Awards. We'll be bringing you the nomination story as well pretty soon. Let's start the show though with the hottest news from this week. We'll get to our review of the Slavia 1 liter TSI in a few minutes and then followed by some of your queries. But first news, Mercedes-Benz has launched the second Maybach in India yesterday. The Mercedes-Maybach S-Class is now in India, and guess what? The more powerful V12 version is already sold out till 2023. Bert was at the launch floor. He also caught up with Martin Schwenk, MD and CEO of Mercedes-Benz India. Here's a bit from that conversation.
Mercedes-Benz India has just launched the Maybach S-Class in India. Now, the car that I'm standing in front of, this is the S680. Now, this is a completely built-up unit, the flagship version. But what's more important, very, very interesting, is that Mercedes-Benz India is now manufacturing India's most expensive car, and that is the S580 right there in the background that you see. Now, that car is locally assembled right here in India. Now, the starting price for the S680 is about 3.2 crore rupees, and the starting price for the S580 is about 2.5 crore rupees. What do I mean by the starting price? Well, both of these cars can be customized with a host of options that you can choose from, and of course the price will reflect that accordingly. But here's what's interesting also. Now, the S680, that comes with the V12 engine under that hood, massive engine, lots of power and torque. The S580 right there, of course, comes with the V8 engine. Again, 4-liter V8, very, very powerful. But that's the one that's being made in India. Now, we will tell you more about that when I drive the car on the review. I'll get all that information to you. But just now, I'm going to head off to, well, have a conversation with Martin Schwenk, who heads Mercedes-Benz in India, and talk to him about what the intent is with bringing out, well, a fully assembled in India Maybach S-Class, and of course, their plans for the future as well. So here we are with Martin. Martin, fantastic day today. India's most expensive car to be assembled, to be made here, right here in India at your facility. Proud day for you indeed.
Absolutely, absolutely. The Maybach has been for us a success story, and the previous model already as a locally produced car was very successful. We sold more than 600, almost 700 cars of that line, and I'm very enthused about what we have launched today. It's really the latest you can get in high-tech and in luxury. Sophisticated luxury is what we call it, and I'm really looking forward for many happy customers here.
Another one of those, hallmarks of having that kind of excellence is also the kind of demand you guys are facing at this point in time, where it significantly outstrips, you're not able to cater to that kind of demand. How are you managing this now?
Yeah, it's not that easy, to be honest, and I should say it's also not what you would aim for. I mean, it's good to have good demand, but if we have customers waiting for 6, 7, 8, 9 months, specifically also in our SUVs like the GLS, then it's definitely not what we aim for. So it is certainly mostly attributed to the overall global supply, and that is restrained by the strong demand which we're seeing on these cars across the ranges, so to say. And that's why we are having very careful consideration what orders we can actually take now. At the same time, we're trying really to match the supplies we get, the supplies also in parts to what customers we can assign to these cars. So there's a lot of efforts which we are doing really on a daily basis to make sure that we really produce the cars that are being needed.
Martin, thank you so much for talking to us today, and all the best. Let's hope this success continues for Mercedes-Benz in India, and we're looking forward to seeing the next generation of cars coming in as well.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, and thanks for joining today our launch here. Thank you.
There's a more detailed interview as well. We'll be uploading that very shortly on the website. Moving on, Jeep India has launched the more off-road focused Jeep Compass Trailhawk at 30.72 lakh rupees ex-showroom. In comparison to the Jeep Compass, the Trailhawk's higher suspension allows it to wade in water up to 19 inches deep, making it perfect for off-roading. The Compass Trailhawk has 225/65 R17 all-season tires that give improved grip on a range of terrain, including sand, mud, snow, and even rocks. But the turning radius stays altered at 5.7 meters. We've reviewed this SUV on our YouTube channel. Story will also air on CNBC TV 18 tomorrow at 1 p.m. Do tune in case you've missed the review. And we've also driven the new Baleno. A detailed test drive is up on our YouTube channel. We will give you a clear idea of what the heads-up display, a first of its kind on a hatchback is like, and many new impressive features as well. And finally, Hero MotoCorp has launched a sub-brand Vida, which will comprise of all of its electric mobility solutions henceforth. The first of its electric two-wheelers is expected to launch on the 1st of July. So let's get Bert on the show. And if you have any questions, feel free to type into the comment section. Bert, you were at the Mercedes-Maybach S-Class launch. What more can you tell us about the car?
Well, okay. So first of all, let me correct this notion that the S class, the Maybach S class, the V12, the S680 is sold out. It is not sold out. All right, that's misinformation. The S class 680, it's on demand. So if you had to order the car today, it would only, however, take you a fairly long period of time. It would take you almost 2 years, and it's not an issue for Mercedes-Benz because there are certain customers in some other spaces also, and other cars that they're selling for that matter, who've got almost 2 year to 3 year wait for some of their cars, especially some of these very exclusive bespoke cars. Global demand is fairly high. Mercedes-Benz is not has not stopped taking orders and not stopped taking bookings for the S-Class, the S680. They're still accepting those bookings. There isn't, like in some of the other cars, there isn't a specific order number, a book that they have that they can only fill probably, sell like 5 units or 10 units or anything like this. This is all based on demand. The Maybach S is a purely on demand car. So if you order your car today, in any case, it would still take you a fairly long time because that customization work is involved. The Maybach is not made in large numbers. In any case, the numbers are fairly limited for it globally also. So customers will still have to wait for their cars to come in. Now, the advantage over here is that the S580, which is locally manufactured, it means there are certain kits that will come down to India, and now this V8 powered S580, of course, there are kits that will be locally assembled at Mercedes-Benz's plant in Pune. There is a fairly decent demand for that as well, from what we understand. In fact, the S680 that the Mercedes-Benz showed us at the launch yesterday, that was a customer car. It's already been, ordered, and it's already come down for that customer. So it only depends on orders. What has been the 2 year period also, what Mercedes Benz indicated yesterday, the 2023, is for certain cars like the G Wagon, the G63 AMG especially, and of course the GLS Maybach also. Even those, the order books are full up to 2023, which means you can still order the car if you want it, but you will only be able to get your delivery after 2023. They haven't stopped bookings for the car as such. Now the S class Maybach, again, whether it's the 580, S580 or the S680, phenomenal cars. Like I mentioned, the 680 comes with that fantastic V12 engine, and the S580 has got that V8 engine. Torque output on the S680 is incredible. You've got 900 newton meters of torque, insane amounts of torque on that car. Though the S580 is no slouch either, 700 newton meters of torque on that car as well. But again, it's not entirely about the driving characteristics of this car. Driving parameters, the driving characteristics are going to be phenomenal for sure. You can expect that magic carpet ride. You can expect a very very high level of fit and finish. Things that you would very rarely see in this industry, except for among some of these bespoke car manufacturers like Rolls Royce or Bentley, for that matter. It's very difficult to get that kind of treatment in the S class, and the Maybach is something that delivers in spades. But what also brings to this segment are some very interesting features, something that we've never seen before. For instance, just a couple of examples. The S class has got noise cancellation, an advanced level of noise cancellation, far better than what you've seen before, for that matter. Where Mercedes-Benz actually promises that you should not even be able to hear any road noises inside the car. The negative sound wave that comes out from the speakers effectively cancels out even road noises, not just the sound of the engine, but even road noises are filtered out, and almost completely. So that's the level of quietness that you can get inside the cabin. That's one part to it. It's also got some very nifty technology. You've got this, what do you call it? It's got this gesture control where you could just kind of wave your hand if you're sitting in the rear seat, and the doors will shut by themselves. You don't need to actually extend your hand out and try to pull that fairly large and heavy door towards you. You just wave your hand, and the door will shut. Now, all of this stuff we will show you when we actually review the car, which will happen very, very soon. Apart from that, also it's got there's several other features also that are really fantastic. It's got those digital lights which use those millions of micro mirrors to project a beam onto the road. Now, globally in European countries, it also adds in a feature where those headlamps give you instructions. They project instructions on the road in front of you, so including navigation for that matter. So it will those headlamps, you will see the direction arrows on the headlamp, on the beams, on the light beams itself on the road, and it'll point out whether you got to go left, right, whether it's a stop sign, and various other things. That technology hasn't entirely come to India because apparently there are still certain government regulations that need to be cleared out. And once the government gives the go ahead, you can get that full array of those digital lights working for Indian consumers also. These digital lights also feature on the S Class, which was launched earlier, actually last year. It's also got this new technology in the wipers itself, where there isn't a washer liquid that sprays out onto the windscreen. Those washer nozzles are embedded into the wiper itself, and it gives you far better. The wipe that happens is far superior. So that way, there's an enormous amount of stuff. In fact, I put it on my social media. There was a brochure that I saw that was almost about 100 pages thick, and that was just a brochure. And interestingly, someone mentioned this to me on my social media handle, saying, if this is the this thing, what could the owner's manual be like? And I'm willing to bet that owner's manual will be one massive potha that you will have to carry around. That whole thing would be some enormous booklet that you have to carry on. Though Mercedes-Benz also gives you some parts of the owners can also get their owner's manual. It comes embedded in the car's infotainment system as well. You do get an option where you can see various features and how to fix certain, or at least to get to know a bit more if you have some small problems, and that can be addressed in by yourself. So all of that is available on that infotainment screen itself. So phenomenal stuff that we're seeing on the S-Class Maybach. But apart from this, what also happened, or rather what was also announced, is that Mercedes-Benz will be coming out with the C-Class very, very shortly, and that's just a few months away. Just about a couple of months, I think, away. And in time, we will also get the EQS, that's the electric S-Class. And this will happen sometime around mid 2022, is when we should see the car coming down India. Possibly sometime during the monsoon season itself is when the car should be available here in India, and that will be another revolution to kind of say, especially since that car will come with that massive hyper screen, fantastic display area. I'm quite looking forward to seeing what that means and what it does, because to be honest, at the end of the day, I'm not a big fan of touchscreens. And having a screen that large running across, single panel running across the length of the Mercedes-Benz, does it actually improve drivability and make it safer or not? I'm quite curious to see how that hyper screen addresses that one concern that I have about most cars with touchscreens.
What? Mayur has written, the digital lights and gesture controls on doors are gimmicks. If you ask me, there is always your driver there to close the door. But if you're paying so much
Absolutely.
money, you want
Absolutely.
everything, right? Why
No, no,
not?
absolutely. The point, Mayur, that I'm going to make also over here is that I will make over here right now is that Mercedes-Benz has seen that a lot of their consumers are not just the ones who are driven around everywhere. A lot of their consumers, including for those for the S class, are people who drive the car as well. Apparently, Mercedes-Benz recently went for some event somewhere, and they saw about 20 or 30 S classes that were driven there by their owners themselves, and that was quite astonishing. Not only that, the age group of that age group was kind of the whole they were somewhere around the 30 age group, which also is very surprising. So that there's that kind of well spread within that age group as well. People who can buy an S class at 30 is phenomenal. I mean, that's great. I'm not in that bracket as of yet, but either way, I mean, I have other liberties. I do get to drive and test the car, but yes. Digital lights are not a gimmick. Again, the whole point of digital lights is a safety and is a precautionary thing. It again enables you to kind of takes your vision away from the touch screens or from the screens below you, and projection of navigation systems on the road in front of you would certainly make it far more interesting and make it far safer, because you effectively don't have to look down. So in that sense, digital lights will certainly work better. It also, because of the micro mirrors which control the throw of light, it controls it doesn't blind the driver who's coming onwards towards you. So there are more than just gimmicky, there's more than gimmicky substance within that feature. The gesture control doors, absolutely, I agree with you. They're certainly gimmicky, but I mean, if you are that rich, you just don't want to even extend your hand out. I mean, I can imagine Mrs. Ambani sitting down over there, and Mr. Ambani taking her for a drive, and she doesn't want to close the door. She just waves her hand, and दरवाजा बंद हो गया.
I like it. I don't think it's a gimmick. I like it. If I'm paying that much money, I want my daughter shut.
Absolutely,
I want the
absolutely.
car
I'm
to
going to
drive
assure
on
you
its own
that I
also.
won't
I
be
don't
spending
want to keep a
2.5
driver.
crores. Unless Mercedes-Benz sends me a driver along with the car, I'd like
Exactly.
people that has an automated door system that just हाथ हिलाओ and दरवाजा बंद हो
Yeah,
गया.
yeah. I want the driver also to feel the luxury, no? Why should the driver also have to get out? He also should feel
Absolutely,
it.
absolutely,
All
absolutely.
right. But Omkar Gosavi wants to know any chance of the Santro getting a facelift in the next 6 months?
Omkar, no, there is no chance of Santro coming in with a facelift in the next 6 months. What they have lined up in the next few months, effectively, is there will be a new generation Hyundai Venue coming out. That's one of the cars that is in the pipeline. Hopefully, we will also see an EV from them in this year. But that is what their immediate plans are for. Apart from that, there aren't too many plans otherwise in terms of new products or facelift updated products coming out.
All right. Here's a question: is there a new X1 coming this year? What will be the expected price, or should he go looking for the Skoda Kodiaq?
Things just got out of hand. Well, okay, there are quite a few cars coming out from BMW this year onwards, but a bulk of it will all be next year. Perhaps the X1 may be one of the cars that will be launched in this calendar year. But now that you're saying you want to take the Kodiaq as a comparison to this, you're certainly getting a lot more value out of the Kodiaq compared to the X1. You're getting a much larger car, a much roomier car, a better, a more comfortable car than the X1. Keep that in mind as well. Driving dynamics may not be on par as the X1. The X1 certainly has got sharper and is a sharper car to drive with more agility. But if that's what you're looking for, then the X1 possibly is your bet. But otherwise, if you're looking for space, if you're looking for comfort, if you're looking a lot more value out of your vehicle, then the Kodiaq is the better option here, without a doubt.
Siddharth wants to know what are your thoughts on the MG Astor? When can we expect your review or road test of the 1.5 liter version of the Astor?
Siddharth, the MG Astra is a good car. But from what I drove it the last time, and we've tested and evaluated this car as well. The latest issue of Overdrive has got an exhaustive comparison test between the Astra, the Kushaq, and the Taigun. Of course, these are all the 1 liter petrols, and you should read that story. You should read that comparison story to know where exactly the Astra stands. The 1.5 liter. Now the problem is MG does not have enough of cars in their fleet at this point in time, and we're still waiting for cars to come out so that we can get you a comprehensive review of this. But to be honest, not many of us have driven the 1.5. To be honest, and it's to get you a proper review for this. What we are hoping that is that MG has, or rather gets, some of these cars into their fleet so they can distribute it across to the media, and you should see some reviews coming up. I'm hoping this happens soon enough, but I can't give you a guaranteed timeline.
All right. Atul basically wants to know how's the interior quality of the new Slavia. I've seen many people complaining about the quality.
Well, Atul, I haven't seen the production ready car. That drive happened in Goa. Unfortunately, I wasn't in the country. I was out in Spain driving the Megane Electric, which Renault intends to bring down to India. We'll talk about that later. But from what I recollect, when I saw the car at its preview, it seemed to have fairly good interior quality. What could have happened is that at the drive itself, and a lot of manufacturers, in the rush of getting things out quickly and give media the opportunity to drive these cars, get their reviews out in the public domain, rushes through by providing pre-production cars for these drives. So it's quite possible that some of these cars were pre-production on the drive, not exactly production ready, and that's why they could have had certain issues with them. But from what I remember and recollect, and this is from my own personal experience, that the quality inside the cabin was top notch. It had phenomenal quality. The build quality was brilliant. The shut lines were brilliant. The upholstery, the fittings, everything were absolutely top notch. And in that sense, it presented great value. Having said that, the pricing for the Slavia does not exactly put me in a good space, a good frame of mind, because I do think while the starting price sounds fairly attractive, at the top end it is a little expensive. But just to kind of give Skoda the benefit of the doubt, or rather to give credit to Skoda, they haven't taken the 1.5 too far ahead. Also, for that matter, under it, keeping it keeping it tightly under 18 lakh rupees is a good space to be in for the 1.5 also. So they have not really exceeded and not made it too expensive for that matter. I think that's a great opportunity for them also. I am certainly looking forward to another sedan coming out of the market and probably changing mindsets and taking some attention away from the SUVs, going back to sedans again, because frankly, while I'm an SUV lover, the kind of SUVs that have been coming out in the market at this point in time is absolutely deplorable. They're nothing but trumped up hatchbacks, and it just doesn't kind of give you the sense and feeling of driving something large, driving something with a fairly substantial footprint on the road. So yeah, I'm not entirely impressed. You Quality wise, I do like I did say. I think it was fairly good because the Slavia had quite good quality. I was impressed with when I saw it at the preview, but let me try and see if I can if I can get my hands on the car, and I will get you an update on what it feels like now that the production of pre-production cars are out on the roads.
But in fact, Rohit in his review has also mentioned that the interior quality is improved over the Kushaq.
And
So
the
that's
Kushaq wasn't
saying
too
a
bad at all.
lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Kushaq wasn't too bad at all.
We will, in fact, start taking your questions about the Slavia in a few minutes. We'll run through the review. You'll be able to take a look at the interior as well. We'll just run through some of the other questions and then get to that story. But what's your opinion on the MG ZS EV, the 2022 model? Balaji wants to know.
Balaji, what we're expecting to see is better range. Period. I couldn't really be concerned about styling, features, what else it has to offer. And I'm saying this now, having driven more and more EVs far more extensively than anyone in the country has, for that matter, taking to places that nobody ever thought about, taking cars, EVs to, for that matter. So coming to the point of a lot of people are very keen about what kind of features it would offer and everything else. It does not concern me at all. There are just a few things that I would like to know is one is that how fast the battery charge and how long it can hold that range. These are two aspects that are very key to me. I want to see good range. I don't want to be in a situation where range anxiety keeps pummeling me throughout my drive. That's something I don't want to get into. So my only concern with the ZSEV would be to see just how good range it has got, and it's not got bad range. In fact, when we recently did our EV drive to Manali with the e-tron, with the story which you will see on the digital show very soon as well. We did meet up with MG ZS EV owner in Chandigarh, who was charging at the same place that we wanted to go and charge at. This was a 60 kilowatt DC fast charger, and he was extremely pleased with that car and with the range that he was getting. He said that he needed a 10-minute top up at if he had to travel between Chandigarh and Delhi. He needed a 10-minute top up at midpoint at a place called Karnal. There is a fast charger again over there also. And the 10-minute top up kind of comfortably got him into Delhi. He had no concerns whatsoever after that. If he didn't top up, then yes, range anxiety used to be is a bit of a concern. But even then, the ZSE kind of makes it between these two places without a hassle. So for me, the 2022 ZSEV should effectively have better range, should have faster charging times, and that's all that I'm looking at.
All right. Here's an interesting question from Siddesh. What will be your pick around 10 lakh rupees for touring domestically or occasionally going beyond Indian borders?
Siddesh, you're talking about a motorcycle, you're talking about a car, man, because 10 lakh rupees for a car, there really isn't much that you could get that would take you across Indian borders, to be honest. Touring domestically, there are lots of cars that you can tour in. I would always recommend an SUV for that matter. And the Kiger could be a reasonably okay choice. I wouldn't say that. I would rather recommend you go into the second-hand market and look for something that you would get under the 10 lakh rupee bracket. Then you have the choices are far more open. But if you had to buy a new car and use it for touring, I would recommend kind of buy the second-hand one. It will work out better. You will certainly find something under the 10 lakh bracket. And then there are a lot of options. Diesels, always keep in mind, if touring is your essential concern, go in for diesels and slightly older diesels, especially diesels that do not come with DPFs or other diesel particulate filters, because depending on the elevation of the place that you go to, diesel particulate filters have an issue and they get clogged, and you could essentially run into problems over there. But otherwise, diesel I also recommend is because diesel is widely available, fuel's clean enough, as in you don't get you get unadulterated fuel across India. Worst case scenario, even if you're running out of fuel, you can always borrow fuel from a trucker somewhere or the other. So in that sense, diesel always makes is better sense for touring. Beyond Indian borders, then there are also, like I said, there are plenty of other choices in the second-hand market that you can get under 10 lakhs. You could also possibly get a reasonably older Fortuner, which you can then take and go overseas also if you have to drive across borders into Southeast Asia, for that matter, or if you're thinking even further, going all the way up to into Russia, if you'd like to do that and provide humanitarian aid in Ukraine as well. But then there are plenty of options, Dinesh.
Omkar, that should answer your question as well, because it was quite similar. You know what? We'll take a break from the questions as of now, and we'll go to our story. Skoda, the Slavia review. Rohit has driven the 1.5 liter variant as well, but today we are going to be focusing on the 1 liter TSI variant. He was driving it in Goa. Here's that story.
India has been requesting the Volkswagen Group for a new set of hatchbacks. A new Polo for certain, maybe even a new Skoda Fabia. And yet, the duo have decided to bring in a new set of sedans. So why are they betting big on a segment that is dying when they can clearly see demand in the hatchback space? Now, one of the reasons for that is the Kushaq and the Taygun. Both these vehicles have gotten off to a great start. It is taking Skoda and Volkswagen respectively to new heights. And the size, the spec, the wheelbase that they've planned for these two vehicles, it's much easier for them to design a sedan variant from this than a hatchback. Because you see, the platform sharing certainly helps reduce cost. If they were to do a hatchback instead, they would have to exploit the modularity of the platform, reduce the wheelbase, take out a few features here and there to make sure that the hatchback would be competitive enough on the pricing compared to the Japs and the Koreans, and that would have been an upheaval task. However, making a sedan, throwing the kitchen sink at it and managing to price it at a premium and still getting good numbers is fairly easy for Skoda, because this brand over so many years now has managed to carve a niche for itself. It is easily one of the more premium brands in the sedan space, no matter what the size, and therefore the Slavia.
The Slavia replaces the Rapid and takes on the likes of the Honda City, the Suzuki Ciaz and the Hyundai Verna. Unlike the Rapid, which looked like it was built upon the Fabia hatchback, the Slavia tells you that it is cut from the same cloth as the Octavia, and it echoes Skoda's new design theme extremely well. As you may have also noticed, it rides tall and doesn't look as low-slung as some of the other sedans.
And that's because the Slavia has 179 millimeters of unladen ground clearance. Add to it the smaller overhangs at the front and rear, and essentially this car isn't going to scrape its chin or its tail as often as, say, the Honda City, the new one. So if you've been purely looking at buying an SUV or a crossover only to tackle poor road conditions, not really going off-road or not really tackling very deep potholes, in that case, I think the Slavia should do just fine. With that kind of ground clearance, with those kind of overhangs, it should be just fine on bad roads. You don't necessarily need an SUV or a crossover.
The Slavia rides quite well too. The chassis and the suspension have a well-damped feeling to them, and it does not thud as often even through the sharper bumps. Despite the tall stance, body roll is quite well controlled too, and even switchbacks don't upset the Slavia all that much. While the show car revealed to us a few months back was shot with the Seat Secura drive tyres, our test cars were rolling on Goodyear Assurance Triple Max tyres, both of which are known to be grippy sets of tyres and cost around 7,000 rupees a pop. Since we are on the topic of handling, the steering is extremely light and could do with a bit more progressive feel around the winding roads, but you will come to grips with it soon enough.
Like the Kushaq, there are two engine options to choose from, a 1-litre 3-cylinder turbo petrol and a 1.5-litre 4-cylinder turbo petrol with cylinder deactivation technology. The one I'm driving is the 1-litre turbo. This is with the manual transmission. Now, this engine comes with a start-stop, an automated start-stop system as standard across the range. There, the engine just started, I'm at a red light. Now this is essentially done to help with the fuel economy, because we have complained in the past that getting good fuel economy from this engine has been a bit of a challenge. Hopefully with this particular setup it would be a little better.
Skoda says that the start-stop system has been calibrated for the Indian road conditions and has contributed to about 8% improvement in fuel economy. And while we haven't managed to road test the car, our day-long drive comprising of city and highway sections of Goa gave us an overall fuel economy figure of about 8.4 kilometers to a litre with the 1-litre manual, but this is on the onboard computer. The engine has a subdued low end, which makes it easy to creep in traffic, and on the automatic variant, they have reduced the lurching effect at slow speeds that we complained about with the Kushaq 1.0 automatic. With either of the gearboxes, this 1-litre engine is best enjoyed if you can keep it in the mid-range and exploit the torque. Short shifting or moving to higher gears quickly may not be a great idea.
So whether you're driving in the city or out on the highway, you want to be in that 2 to 5,000 RPM zone to be able to pull those quick overtakes. Under 2,000 RPM, you might just feel the dearth of power and you might need to downshift every now and then. So overtakes, both in the city and the highway, do need a little bit of planning. I quite like the shift quality on this manual gearbox. It is not as rubbery as some of the older manual transmissions that we've seen from this group. It's not as click or as slick as some of the Japanese counterparts either, but I quite like how the shifts happen. Getting a good driving position is not a problem at all, and visibility I think is excellent. The bonnet, because it's quite tapering, it doesn't really intrude in your field of vision anywhere. The A-pillars are nice and slim despite the inclusion of a speaker in it, so even the cornering visibility is not a problem at all. The mirrors are not too big, however there is a fair bit of wind noise that you will hear inside the cabin at say about 70 kilometers an hour like I'm doing right now. So the wind noise could have been tackled with in a better manner, because the rest of the NVH is actually quite good. They've managed to kill most of the noises quite well. Like I said, this is the 1-litre engine that I'm driving. This is a 3-cylinder, but you don't really hear all the thrumming of that engine inside the cabin. Once you're outside, yes, you do hear a bit, but inside the cabin, you don't hear the engine at all. So the NVH overall is quite good.
Since we are on the topic of the exhaust note, I think a car that looks this good could have done with good-looking exhaust tips too. Since I mentioned the looks, the Slavia is the widest executive sedan out there and one of the longest too. And that not only gives it a stunning road presence, but also plenty of space. For example, the boot, it's massive, better than the Kushaq or the Creta even, and can swallow everything from golf kits to big suitcases and maybe even skis and surfing boards if you drop the seats. So versatility isn't a concern, and another reason why you may not need a crossover or SUV for your road trips. The cabin is exceptionally roomy too and has a premium feel to it. It doesn't have soft touch plastics, but neither do any of its competitors. Despite that, the elements and common touch points do not feel low rent. The infotainment is the same as the Kushaq. It supports wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto and has a small suite of apps including the Sejic offline maps. The top trim also comes with digital instrumentation with 3 display layouts to choose from. I would have liked the infotainment, the instrumentation and the reversing camera to have a higher resolution for crisper visuals. And I would have also liked the shade of the orange on the instrumentation to match the bronze strip that runs along the dashboard. And no, it doesn't look like a piece of cardboard. But this is just me nitpicking as always.
I think this is the roomiest rear seat in the executive sedan space. You can look at the patch of the light on my hand. I just wish they had window blinds, and then this would have been just perfect. But otherwise, just look at the kind of space that I have. I mean, this knee room, I can't even reach the front seat. It's not set to my driving preference. Tuhin is driving the car. He is 5'6", but I'm 5'8". I'm sure it's not going to be much of a difference anyway when I have my driving posture set. This is just phenomenal space. Headroom could have been better because anyone taller than either of us is going to have a problem with this headroom, especially when you go over a speed hump or you go through potholes at speed. This is going to be a bit of a worry. 6-footers are definitely going to brush their head against the lineup. But otherwise, superb. The kind of visibility that you get outside of the windows is quite nice too. The center armrest is quite good. You also get two shallow cup holders where you can keep small bottles or cups. And you also have your rear AC vents. So I think overall, all these things considered, Skoda has another winner on their hands. I think their calculations have been perfectly right.
These calculations essentially pit the Skoda Slavia's 1-litre variants against the other executive sedans and challenge them on power, space and features. Skoda is also offering easy service packages that start at around 25,000 rupees for 4 years, which should add more peace of mind and an easy cost of ownership as well.
All right, we've got actually bought first question. Do you
Yes.
think Skoda will launch the diesel version of the Slavia?
No, Skoda will not launch a diesel version for any car anytime soon. They are working on diesel globally, but that will be too expensive an option for cars like the Slavia. So it's not coming out of the diesel, and there's not going to be a diesel anytime soon. Also, for that matter, anything that will happen in the diesel space would take them at least a year and a half, if not longer, to materialize.
Okay, we have Rohit joining us, but he is in motion. Hi, Rohit.
Hi guys, I hope you can hear me.
Rohit, are you
I'm
taking your baby for a walk?
I was, but now I'm just getting in the car. Yeah, so yes, I can start taking questions now.
All right. Aditya wants to know the Slavia versus the Taigun. Would highly appreciate the comparison.
Okay, I think, like I said in the review, if you do not necessarily need, sorry, just give me 1 sec. Yeah. So if you do not necessarily need, off-roading capability of any kind, of course, the Taigun and even by relation, the Kushaq, they aren't really off-roaders. They are soft-roaders at the end of the day. But if you don't necessarily need to tackle very deep potholes, if you don't necessarily need that extra 10-20 millimeters of ground clearance that the Taigun or the Kushaq is going to offer over the Slavia, I think the Slavia does a very good job by itself. The ground clearance is quite good, 179 millimeters of unladen ground clearance. We did drive it over some bad patches of road as well in Goa. And nowhere did we feel, that the car would have any kind of a problem. In fact, if you see the review, if you go back to the review, there we have also shown some of the the bad patches that we drove on. We couldn't shoot entirely on the rough patches, but yeah, it did not pose a threat anywhere to the underbody of the car at all. And even with 4 people, the ground clearance still remains quite good. The car doesn't bog down too much. So overall, I'm pretty impressed with what they've managed. And I also remember someone had commented on the review that with that kind of ground clearance, you're expecting a lot of body roll. I won't really agree with that. No, the body roll is not that bad. In fact, the shot that you're seeing on the screen right now, that shows you that the body remains pretty flat. It still handles like a typical Skoda sedan. It doesn't feel overtly squishy or anything of that sort. So overall, I'm quite impressed with the Slavia. Also, like I said, like Bert also answered one of the queries, the interior quality is now better than what we've seen in the Kushaq. They have taken the feedback from us, the media. They've taken the feedback from the initial batch of customers as well. Like some people had a problem with the headliner. That headliner has been changed. The quality of materials has been improved over the Kushaq. And it's a no-brainer that all these minor improvements will also come to the Kushaq by mid 2020 is what we are told. So anyone who is waiting to get delivery of the Kushaq will also benefit from all these improvements. So overall, I think it's a nicer car. If I had to go pick the Slavia over a Kushaq or a Taigun, I would certainly do that. I am pretty much in love with that car. I really like what they've done, how that package has come together.
All right. And Bhargava wants to know, does the Slavia 1.5 justify its premium over the Honda City?
It certainly does. It certainly does. If you remember, when I drove the Honda City, I was very, very, very impressed with the 1.5 liter VTEC engine. I still am impressed. In fact, if I had to make a choice between the 1 liter Slavia versus the 1.5 Honda City, I would certainly pick up the Honda City purely from a driving enthusiasm point of view. The Slavia has slightly better features, more room, etc. So we'll have to see how all of these things come together when we do a comparative review. But off the hand, right now, I'm telling you, if I was a driving enthusiast, compared to the 1 liter, I would certainly pick up the 1.5 Honda City. The natural, I love that engine. It's just brilliant. But the turbo 1.5, the 1.5 TSI in the Slavia, that package it's just phenomenal. Unfortunately, we've not been able to put together that review yet. We will do that very soon. We've been traveling. We've been busy with the overdrive jury rounds in Chennai. So that's the reason why we have not been able to adhere to the embargo and, publish that review just yet. But that review is coming. The Slavia 1.5 review is coming. So between the two, if you can stretch, yes, the Slavia 1.5, hands down, that is the car that you want, whether or not you're a driving enthusiast. It's just a lovely package.
There's one more in the comparison, Rohit. The Astor 1.3. Aniket says he doesn't have any particular body style in mind, but he wants to know between these two, which one would you pick?
Honestly, now here we are. Bert has driven the Astor 1.3, but he hasn't driven the Slavia 1.5. I've driven the Slavia, but I haven't driven the Astor. So I can't really comment much, till I drive the Astor 1.3. I've been only hearing good things from Bert, from Tuhin, whoever's driven those cars. I've unfortunately not driven that car yet, so I can't really take a pick, till I drive it. But I think I'm still sort of basking in the infatuation that I've had with the Slavia 1.5. So I think I'll still sort of go with that car over the Astor.
Okay. Did I? I
So
we
maybe there's
did take
another
this
interesting
question.
question. There's another
Huh.
interesting question that I saw. Why do manufacturers choose Rajasthan as well, like Goa? Because Taigun, I-20 N-Line, and Celerio were all reviewed in Udaipur. Okay, so there are two reasons for this. There are not two. There are quite a few reasons for this actually. And there's something new that I learned from one of the manufacturers also, very very recently for that matter. And some manufacturers pick up Goa because they want to curtail the kind of speeds that journalists would drive these cars at. They don't want journalists to drive at highway speeds because that puts a different perspective on other cars, the capabilities and what it can do at highway speeds. So that is something that they don't want to entirely reveal, and which is why Goa has got tighter inner roads where the speeds are not very high. And there are certain other aspects of the car that you would focus on rather than trying to drive it at higher speeds and trying to understand whether handling is good or whether ride quality at speed is good, whether it feels stable, secure, safe. Those kind of things kind of get swept under the carpet until, of course, we can't really avoid it when the cars come to us for a review. But on the first drive, uh, you kind of restrict or at least control what kind of information comes out into the public domain. Rajasthan, of course, is a completely different perspective for that matter. And again, this has to do both with Rajasthan and Goa. Both of these states are very well connected. They've got plenty of scenic locations that are easily accessible. They've got fairly large properties, hotels essentially, which have got a large amount of inventory, which means there are plenty of rooms. So on a media drive, for instance, you would at any given point in time, and media drives today go on to multiple rotations for almost about 4, 5, 6 days sometimes, and multiple rotations of journalists keep coming in. Journalists, vloggers, social media influencers, various people keep coming for these drives. Now we're getting invited for these drives. Uh, there is a lot of room and a lot of space to accommodate them. So Rajasthan and Goa hotels, you've got plenty of hotels that have got in excess of 100 rooms sometimes. So a big large junket of about, let's say, 50 to 60 people sometimes, which involves both people from the manufacturer's side, the PR agency, the journalists, their video and photography crew. All of them can be accommodated in the same place rather than putting them up in different hotels. So that's why these places are particularly chosen. I know that agencies choose this essentially because they're the easiest to manage everything. Accommodation is available, good flight connectivity is there, the roads are good, and of course there are scenic locations also where you can shoot and photograph these cars or bikes.
All right. There's a question here from Faisal. He basically wants to know, in the land of Kitna Deti Hai, Slavia returns a fuel mileage of 8 kilometers to the liter. Why should he buy it?
Well, Faisal, 8 kilometers to a liter is not the figure that we would want to publish. In fact, I have clearly said in my review that the 8.4 kilometers per liter is the onboard figure that we got, and that is not with regular driving. We are driving as per the cameraman's requirement as well. We are also testing the car a little bit for its handling, for its speed, for its acceleration. So with all of that, 8.4 is what it shows on the screen. I've clearly said in the review that we have not done a road test. So this is just a minor indication for us to give you. If you want a fairly better idea, do catch our Kushak review as well, where we've road tested the car. We've published the figures for the 1.5 as well as the 1 liter variants. So you'll get a fair idea. The Slavia is slightly lighter than the Kushak. It's around the same ballpark, but slightly lighter than the Kushak. So you might just get a little bit better fuel economy than what the Kushak currently offers you. Between the 1.5 and the 1 liter, the 1.5 actually returns better fuel economy because for that size of the car, the 1.5 works better. It also comes with cylinder deactivation technology. The engine is running less stressed as compared to the 1 liter, especially if you're carrying 4 people and their luggage. So overall, all of that comes together. The 1.5 is slightly better in terms of the fuel economy. But if you're only going to be driving in the city, the 1 liter should do you just fine. But like I said, don't take that 8 kmpl figure. That is not the figure that we would want to put out in this review. It's just a minor indication for you to sort of understand what's the overall figure we got.
All right. Apur says Kartikeya Singhi noticed some creaking in the dashboard plastics and poorly put together interior bits in the Slavia. What was your experience?
I'll not say poorly put together interior bits. I've not seen his review, so I can't really comment on the problems that he has had. But yes, you know that I like to go nitpicking when I'm reviewing vehicles. And compared to the Kushak, the Slavia did not give me any such problems. We did, however, have one of the test cars that we were driving did have quite a few rattles coming in from the door panels. And that is only when we are playing bass-heavy music. But I changed the cars. I tried it with the other cars with the same exact track, with the same volume, with the same EQ settings as well. But I couldn't replicate that same rattle again in the other cars. So I'm going to discount this, saying these are pre-production prototypes because that is what they are. And apart from that rattle in that one particular car, I couldn't really find any issue. Like I showed in the review, we drove over some bad patches of road as well. There was no thudding from the suspension. There was no creaking from the plastics. Even when cornering hard, there was no creaking from the plastics. So I don't think it's a concern. Honestly, I even mentioned that the power window motors were not as noisy as the one that we tested with the Kushak. If you remember my Kushak review, I pointed out that the power window motors are very noisy. Even that has been ironed out. We got a confirmation from Skoda that they have made changes to the entire power window unit, and it's not as noisy anymore in the Slavia. And all these advancements will also come, or all these improvements, small improvements, but all these significant improvements will also come to the Kushak going forward. So yes, I would just say it could be a one-off case with his particular car, unless he found that in each and every car that he drove, because both of us have driven 2 variants, but I did manage to drive 3 to 4 cars since we also drove the manual and the automatic of the 1 liter and the 1.5. So a total of 4 cars, and I couldn't replicate the problem with that rattling door panel.
All right. Nitin Joshua wants to know, does the Slavia inspire the same confidence as the Octavia around corners?
The Octavia is slightly better. The Octavia is running slightly better equipment, but you'd really have to push the cars very hard to be able to understand the slightly better handling of the Octavia. The Slavia feels like it's cut from the same cloth. When I've said that, when I've used that line in my review, I also mean it's not just the design, but also the way the car handles. It's a brilliant handler. Despite that increased ground clearance, it handles very well. The body roll is not something that is a matter of concern. I'm pretty impressed with how it puts power down, how it goes around the bends. But I've also mentioned, where I mentioned the model of the tires and everything, that it is very easy to get a wheel spin on those front wheels. That also means that sometimes if you're pushing too hard, there is a fair bit of understeer as well that you get from that front wheel drive configuration, despite all the tech that has been packed into the car. It does have It does mimic the effects of a differential by breaking the inner wheels. It works quite well, and I'm pretty impressed. But yeah, it's a front wheel driven car. It will have its own limitations to an extent, but overall, I'm pretty impressed with the handling package, and it just gets better with the 1.5.
And since we're on the topic of handling, Sahil is asking that since you've driven it, can we say that City is the best handling and best steering feel and feedback in its segment?
No, if you remember in the City review, I had mentioned that the City could do with better tires because it did feel that the chassis wasn't really complemented that well by the size of tires used, by the kind of tires used. It always felt a little skittish. The steering feel was definitely excellent. The steering feel, the City, I think it still is better than the Slavia. The Slavia refuses to weigh up even as the speeds increase. I would want that more progressive feel from the steering. But overall handling, it's the Slavia for me. The Slavia just does it. You just need to get used to that steering feel. That's about it. But right now, as a handling package, without having to change tires or upgrade tires or whatever, the Slavia out of the box is the better handling. And
Okay.
that electric diff that
Sorry.
I'm talking about, it is standard across all the variants. So even if you are to buy the 1 liter variant in its most basic trim, you will still get that electronic differential that they have, where it breaks the inner wheels when you start pushing the car hard. So in terms of handling, there's not going to be any change no matter what variant you choose.
All right. Here's a question from Satya. He wants to know, does the Slavia really make us forget the Octavia? And don't you think it's a little overpriced for a sedan?
Satya, no, I don't think it's overpriced for a sedan. I think the City has been the benchmark in this segment, and they have managed to price the Slavia around that. Of course, the 1.5 is expensive because that engine sits in a different league altogether. It's a turbocharged 1.5, cylinder deactivation, 150 horsepower. So it is purely aimed at the enthusiast, and it is an imported engine at the end of the day. So that is adding up to the cost, and that is what is making it slightly expensive. The Octavia itself has gotten quite expensive, which is exactly what I said in my review as well. That if you don't necessarily need to stretch to the Octavia for that additional space, I think the Slavia does everything just well. Give or take a few features here and there, give or take a few additional creature comforts here and there, and that's all that will make you stretch to the Octavia. Otherwise, if you don't need that bigger cabin, I think the Slavia does just fine. So will it make you forget the Octavia? I don't know. Depends on how you feel about the Octavia. But if you don't need that extra space, if I'm out in the market right now, I would definitely not want to stretch to the Octavia. I'll be very happy with the Slavia 1.5.
Okay, let's take a couple of other questions. But Badri says he's from Bangalore. Kia Carnival or the basic variant of the Innova Krista, the top variant, he has a budget of 33 lakhs.
Badri, Kia Carnival, without a doubt. It's the MPV to have. It doesn't matter whether you're taking the mid or the base variant. The mid variant will give you a few more features, and if that falls within your budget, I think that is certainly the MPV to go for. I would recommend it any day over the Innova Krista. The only thing that the Innova Krista has going for it right now, it's the reliability quotient. Not to say that the Kia Carnival is not reliable. I have driven it for well over a year. That matter as a long termer, not exactly a long term, but I've had it with me for a very, very long period of time, and it was just brilliant. No complaints whatsoever, no problems, no issues. It was just amazing. And I would highly recommend that vehicle to absolutely anybody. So if it fits within your budget, the mid variant, certainly go for it.
All right. Omkar here wants to know which is the best car to buy in a budget of 6 lakh rupees, ex showroom. Safety and build quality is priority, mid spec and top spec preferred. Maruti Suzuki cars are not preferred.
Omkar, very, very tough to be honest, because the only cars I think I can think of which are in that 6 lakh budget, your only other option would be possibly the Quid, and that's about it. Quid and its multiple variants that you could. So one of them would certainly fit your requirement. But apart from that, I think Maruti is the only one who's got cars in that segment. So unfortunately, your choices are very, very limited if you're looking for something up to about 6 lakh rupees. The Quid being one of the more outstanding cars at that price band.
All right, Rohit, here's a question. Bhargava wants to know, does the i20 justify its premium over the Baleno? I'm assuming this is the new Baleno we are talking about.
Bhargava, that's going to be a tough one. Yes, the i20 still manages to justify the premium over the Baleno. Remember, the i20 is a very expensive proposition. We have also said this in the past that if you can or you're willing to stretch for a hatchback for that kind of money, it's up to you. In fact, we have one of our team members, Sohini, who has already taken that plunge. She has already stretched and got herself the i20. She has also had a Baleno in the house.
Still
But
has it.
yes, oh, still has it, right? But yes, the new Baleno, I think we had that constant complaint, right, that Maruti Suzuki doesn't pack its cars with a lot of features the way some of its competition is doing, including Hyundai. So now they have sort of started making those changes. They've brought in connected tech. They've brought in a few essential features, including that heads-up display to the Baleno. So the value proposition of the Baleno is now better compared to the i20. But if you just, you want the best in tech, you want everything that something like the Creta is offering you in terms of the features, almost everything, not ventilated seats, but almost everything that the Creta is offering you in terms of features, but you want it in a compact size of a hatchback, you want it with the handling package of a hatchback, the i20 still ticks all those boxes. It's the only one that can give you that level of kit, whereas the Baleno cannot. So, yeah, but the Baleno overall, I think it's a much more value for money product than before. It's offering a lot more than before, and I think it looks pretty good as well. So yes, you would not go wrong choosing the Baleno. But if you want to stretch, if you want a conversation starter with a lot of features in your car, the i20 is still the one to pick.
All right. And Rohit, Siddesh wants to know, do you think Honda will launch the new CB 500X in India anytime soon after slashing down prices of the 2021 model? They are sold out within 10 days.
I don't know, Siddesh, because there are two sides to the story. One story that I hear is that they slashed the prices because the 500X wasn't selling. The other story that I've heard is they slashed the prices because they had to get rid of the 2021 inventory and make space for the 2022 model to come in. But I mean, either way, it's clear that the CB500X wouldn't sell at the price at which they originally launched. So whether they bring the 2022 lot or not, they have to price it right. They have to price it around the bike that is going out right now. So I'm not sure if Honda is going to do that. I hope they do it. And if they do, yes, it's a good value proposition. It's a nice motorcycle. But if they again bring it at that ridiculous price at which the 2021 model was launched, then I don't see much value in that offering.
All right. But Prashik wants to know, when can we expect the launch of the new S Cross in India?
Well, Prashik, there are a lot of plans for new Maruti cars in this year. I think we will see at least another couple more cars coming out this year. But would the S Cross, updated S Cross, be one of them? I don't think so. The earliest we will hear anything about this is towards the end of the year, and hopefully by early next year we will see some movement on the S Cross. But before that, nothing else. So, there are
Okay,
interesting.
Rohan.
There are a couple of questions actually,
Sorry.
which I think I want to take over here.
Yeah.
One of them is from Ashish Abhishek. Will Jeep launch a subcompact SUV in the Indian market in the near future? And I think we should take this because it's something that we did not address earlier also. Now, very recently, I was part of a small meet gathering of journalists in Mumbai where Jeep had at least the Slantis group kind of had this big conversation about Jeep and what its upcoming plans were. You would have probably seen the story on Overdrive's website also, where they clearly said that they will be coming out with the Grand Cherokee and one of the two vehicles in this year. One of them was the Trailhawk, Compass Trailhawk, which you've seen. The Meridian is going to be another one, and then you've got the Grand Cherokee. Now, these are the three product lines that are in Egypt. Of course, the subcompact segment will not see an entry from Jeep. You will not see a subcompact Jeep anytime soon. And essentially, what Jeep now believes, and this is despite a lot of commentary by the company officials very early on. In fact, I think almost about 7, 8 years ago, where they said they were working on a compact SUV. What they're currently saying that uh, a compact SUV with incorporating Jeep's DNA is just not possible. They are trying to see if they can, get it down into a more affordable price bracket, but right now they aren't able to do that, which means you will not see a subcompact SUV from Jeep anytime in the Indian market in the near future.
All right, Rohit, there's a question from Nitin Joshua. Is there any suspension tuning difference between the 1 liter and the 1.5 liter variant of the Slavia? And the 1.5 liter VSI has a sporty suspension, or does it prioritize ride comfort over handling? You're on mute, Rohit.
Sorry. So ride comfort is what Skoda has gone with. They have not tried to make a lot of suspension change or make it sporty in the 1.5 or anything of that sort. What they have obviously compensated for is the weight. That's about it. The engine is slightly heavier in the 1.5 compared to the 1 liter. So they've only tried to compensate for that in terms of the suspension tuning, but they have not tried to make it any sportier. It's not the sporty variant as such. Ride comfort is what takes precedence for them.
Okay.
I'll take a couple. There's another question, sorry, that I think a couple of them that
Yeah.
actually are interesting over here also. One, of course, I'm going to. This is to Farhan Borkar. Farhan, he mentions that he asks us, can you advise Mercedes-Benz to refrain from becoming the Maruti of the luxury segment? Horrible on quality. Farhan, I do wish you can write in to us. You can send a mail to me, bertrand@overdrive.co.in. Do write in, and any issues and concerns that you have, send it to me, and you can bet your last buck that I will get in touch with the Mercedes Benz and give them the feedback. And hopefully, they should be able to respond. They should have good response for you. So do send that email to me. Uh, There's another question from Sahil. It says Honda City, fourth gen scored 4 stars, but unstable body shell, and Jazz scored the same with stable body shell. Do you think that Honda should send fifth gen City to G NCAP as the rework platform and adding ESP and 4 airbags? Well, okay, Sahil, you heard how it works. Global NCAP, you can't send cars essentially to Global NCAP. Global NCAP picks out cars from the Indian market, informs manufacturers they want particular cars to be tested, and they randomly try and select cars. So it's up to Global NCAP to effectively pick up that particular car and then evaluate it, test and evaluate for crash safety. If they're able to do that and they got the bandwidth to do this, and Global NCAP I know is very busy because they're looking at both South American markets, African markets, and of course Indian and other Southeast Asian markets. It's essentially areas where accidents occur very frequently, and there is high death rate because of accidents. They're looking at those markets, and that's why India keeps figuring in their test ratings. But yes, Global NCAP will have to essentially pick out a Honda City, a fifth gen Honda City, and then evaluate it. It's not up to Honda to necessarily send it across to them, and there's no reason why Honda would want to do this also.
But here's a question from Amrish. Is there any workshop in Mumbai that trains people about the functioning of different parts of an automobile?
Amrish, I saw that question of yours, but unfortunately, there isn't any workshop in Mumbai that does this. And let's see if we do have the bandwidth. Then we would love to get into getting, into doing a small series of videos, especially that can tell you how various parts in the car function. Rohit, in fact, I had told him to do a couple of stories, but we're just too busy at this point in time to kind of get cracking on those stories. Team strength also is fairly limited. But if you're able to, we will try and get you a series of videos that will help you at least identify what the parts are and how they're supposed to function, how they function, and what they're supposed to deliver to you.
But here's a question from Vinod Chawla. He says the Hyundai Venue 1.5 CRDI, his daily commute will be city only 700 kilometers per month. He's worried about the DPF choking issues. He lives in Faridabad where temperatures are extreme like Delhi.
So Vinod, again, Delhi is more or less is just a little higher than sea level. So DPF effectively for the DPF to malfunction or to have serious concerns, what you need is an extremely polluted city with a lot of dust content in the air. Then they would of course get clogged, and it's not a concern. You just have to go in for the service. It's a very simple cleaning process. There are lots of videos on YouTube also that show you how to clear out or how to clean out your DPF yourself. There's a trick to doing that. Faridabad, even where temperatures are extremely high, it really doesn't matter. You will not have an issue where temperature is concerned because DPF will not fail in temperature conditions. Where DPS have a problem is essentially at higher altitudes where there is a very high fuel or other rich fuel mixture running through the system because there's a lack of air, oxygen at higher altitudes. which is why the DPFs run the engine system, the entire powertrain runs very rich mixtures, which means a lot more fuel goes through your system, and if that fuel is dirty and it's unburnt cleanly, it's not cleanly burnt, then of course all of those impurities get clogged in the DPF faster than they would at sea level. So Delhi, essentially, you should not have too many problems. If you are consistently facing a lot of problems with your DPF, then you have a more serious issue with your car, which you need to get checked. But otherwise, there shouldn't be any concern at all. Whenever you go in for a regular service, what the service station will also do is that they will clear out and they clean out your DPF. Simplest way to do that is to kind of, if I remember it correctly, is to run your car, or at least just keep it in idle for about half an hour, 45 minutes, and run it about 1800, close to about 2000 RPM. Keep the needle over there, and that automatically unclogs the DPF. The other way to do this is to consistently drive it for about 80 kilometers an hour for at least about 50 kilometers. And that is a little tricky because getting the roads where you can consistently drive it at a steady 80 kilometers an hour, I'm not sure if you have that space in Delhi to do that. So the only other way is to kind of keep it idle and get into that cleaning mode.
Okay, we have a question here from. We have a lot of questions coming in. I've just lost track of the one that I wanted to. But Shantanu wants to know, is the Camry a better buy than the C class? We are unable to come to a conclusion which car to buy.
Okay, let me put it like this, Shantanu. What you're getting with the Camry is an E-class sized vehicle, which means you're getting a fairly large vehicle with a lot more space. Again, the Camry in India is available as a hybrid, so you're getting a nice powertrain, which also gives you good fuel efficiency for a car in that segment. The ride quality, the comfort, luxury, all of that is just brilliant. And then, of course, there's the Toyota badge of reliability, better service quality, faster service delivery as well. So all of that associated with the Camry, and that is why it becomes a far more valuable product than the C class. Now, this is my perspective. Having said that, what you would also see is that demand for the C class significantly outstrips that of the Camry, and this principally because of the badge value also that Mercedes-Benz has to offer. That three-pointed star, there's a lot of value that it carries, and it's more of an aspirational value rather than actually proper native value associated with the car itself. As a product, the Camry is a far nicer car. It's a much better car, I think, than the C class. Lots of space, lots of great ride quality, decent performance, hybrid powertrain. So all of those things are something that you will not get, or rather, will be very very expensive in the comparative Mercedes, which is effectively the E class.
Okay, Rohit, I guess we'll let you go. I guess you have some more duties to carry on. So we
Yes,
shall see you
the
next week.
baby has
Do join
started
us next
crying
week.
now, so I have to rush. Yes, sorry everyone. Thanks for bearing with me, and I'll join you all next week. Bye, Bert. Bye, Sohini.
See
Bye,
you.
everyone.
See you.
All
Bye.
right, see you.
Thanks.
Bye.
We can take a couple
Bert,
more
here was
questions, Dhoni. I think we've really run past time right now.
we have. But here was a question from Karthik: the Sonnet Turbo, or the Nexon Petrol for highway driving?
Wow. Interesting question. I would recommend, well, the Sonnet Turbo. I would certainly recommend that. Better performance, better agility, better dynamics, all of that involved in the Sonnet Turbo. The Nexon Petrol I would recommend because it's got, I believe it's got better ride quality, ride comfort, and Tatas are well known for giving very, very comfortable cars in that sense. So, yes, very tough question, but nonetheless, I think my choice would be the Sonnet Turbo. I'm still not convinced at this point in time also if the Nexon, whether it's petrol or diesel powertrains, if the Nexon is a very, very reliable car, and that's my only concern. So if I was, out on the highway driving it long distances essentially, uh, I'm not going to put my faith in the Nexon at this point in time also. I would recommend the Sonnet over the Nexon any day.
But Nitin wants to know, why are midsize sedans cheaper than midsize SUVs? Slavia 4.5 meters long with more features is cheaper than the Kushaq 4.2-meter long by almost a lakh in topmost 1 liter variant. Same with the Creta and the Verna.
Well, and then you'll actually have to see what kind of feature spec. That's one area. Sometimes what manufacturers try to do is add in more features into the SUVs compared to the sedans. It also works vice versa for that matter. We've seen this from Hyundai, for instance, where the Venue, or was it the Creta? I'm not exactly sure, but I think it's the Creta had more features than the Verna for that matter. Had fewer features than the Verna. And the Verna turned out to be better value than the SUV. The sedan turned out to be better value than the SUV. But effectively, what you're also looking at is a larger body size in terms of an SUV, and that body size, of course, commands slightly higher pricing. We're also looking at is slightly stiffer suspension ratings, or rather tuned suspension settings and things like that, all of which cost a little more money. You're also looking at a slightly stronger body shell because of the body construction, because of the body style for that matter. Construction is a little different for SUVs. That becomes a little more expensive, and that's why you see, SUVs are a little more expensive than their sedan counterparts across the board.
All right, one last question, Bert. Anindit wants to know, why are most car brands not launching diesel engines?
Very good question, Anandit. Effectively, as we go now, there are two concerns with this also. Diesel is not a very clean fuel. The emissions coming out of a diesel tailpipe are far worse than those coming out of a petrol tailpipe, and manufacturers are not able to control that, because controlling that means putting in more advanced technology into cars, therefore raising the prices of cars to a level where it may not become a very viable business operation. And that's why you're seeing most manufacturers moving towards petrol engines, because they're able to control emissions far easier than they can do it with diesel. Also, now petrol is a far more accepted, or at least is accepted as a cleaner fuel, with more emissions coming in, with more stringent emission norms coming in. Petrol powertrains are able to deliver, or at least meet those requirements. So you can downsize your the trick over here is, if you have a larger engine, the amount of emissions coming out of the engine is much higher than a smaller motor, which is why a 1.5 liter engine will emit more fumes and more NOx, more carbon monoxide, dioxide, everything, than compared to a 1 liter engine. Now, the advantage of the 1 liter engine also is that you can turbocharge it and still have higher power and torque outputs. So, which is why most manufacturers are now preferring to go out with petrol engines compared to diesel engines, and that's essentially why you see most car brands moving towards petrol engines rather than diesel. Also, of course, the shift to electric vehicles will happen very soon, or at least a more mass market shift to electric vehicles will happen very soon. We're going to see plenty of EVs coming out this year and the next. So, fingers crossed that happens also. I think it will certainly be better for the environment. We're already reaching a point where things are getting untenable any longer. Recent studies have already shown that the planet is, on various parameters, is well past the point of no return. So, yes, we certainly need more, how would I say it, emission, or rather ecologically friendlier cars coming into the market. That's the only way we can possibly, contribute to saving the planet.
All right, guys, we've answered plenty of your questions, but you all need to show us your support. Give us a thumbs up, a like. We've answered plenty of your questions. Otherwise, we refuse to answer any more from next week. It's time to give you a teaser of what's on the show on CNBC TV 18 tomorrow at 1 p.m. or go ahead, Vivek, you can play it.
Making a sedan, throwing the kitchen sink at it, and managing to price it at a premium and still getting good numbers is fairly easy for Skoda, because this brand, over so many years now, has managed to carve a niche for itself. It is easily one of the more premium brands in the sedan space, no matter what the size, and therefore, the Slavia.
In 2021, the Jeep Compass received quite a thoughtful midlife update, which fixed most of the SUV's drawbacks on the inside and left the generally solid mechanical package intact. But with competition in this segment intensifying constantly, Jeep has now expanded the Compass lineup by reintroducing the top-end Trailhawk again.
All right, so don't miss out on this show. Sumit, you're asking if the team has driven the 1.5 liter Slavia. You can check out the review on the Overdrive website. It's up now. So I guess, but we'll say goodbye to people. Have a good weekend, and we'll catch up next weekend.
Absolutely. Have a nice weekend, guys. And the semiconductor issue is over, and now we've got the Russia-Ukraine crisis. So that puts another completely different spin on things. Again, global geopolitics, the way they're playing out right now, things are changing, turning. Some it could be for the better or for the worse. I mean, depends on how you look at the perspective, what kind of perspectives you look at, how you approach it. But what we understand also from certain manufacturers is that the Russia-Ukraine crisis effectively means that those two markets, and which are very, very large markets in the world, demand for buying cars will go down, will dip down. But at the same time, there could be other issues because Russia is one of the largest producers or other suppliers to the automotive industry for certain semiconductor, rare earth metals. For I think nickel comes from Russia that goes into EV batteries, and there are several other things, even natural gases for that matter, and oils, fuels for that matter, also come out from Russia. So all of these could affect supply chains, which could be a bad thing as well. But at the same time, because these two markets are not taking in any new cars at this point in time, that means possibly certain other markets, would get that allotment from some global manufacturers also. So things are quite volatile. Let's just hope and pray, and all of our wishes with people in that part of the world. Let's not get too racist with our comments over here, but yeah, I mean we are in the year 2022, well past. I think mature should be mature enough anywhere across the world for that matter to avoid this situation. Let's see how things pan out, and should be all we can do is hope and pray. In fact, I was just recently returning back from Europe, from Spain, after having driven the Renault Megane electric over there, which is something that we will come to you very soon. That story is also out on the web right now. Do read about it because Renault is keenly looking at bringing that car down to India, and of course having local assembly with that car over here. So which means it will be a little more affordable, maybe in the ZS EV price bracket, maybe if not, maybe cheaper also. We never know. But as I was flying back, and there was a lot of concern between flyers and people traveling across Europe as to whether what was happening in Europe, especially between Russia and Ukraine. In fact, on our flight, one of the pilots also had to announce that no, we are not flying over Russian airspace, and we're taking completely different route. So yes, that made things interesting. But yeah, a lot of things could change globally because of it. We've come out of one mess, we've entered into another. But still, at this point in time, even though a lot of things have opened up here in India as well, stay safe, wear a mask, sanitize, wash your hands, do all those things for a little longer. We've done it for 2 years now. It can't hurt to do it for a few more months, maybe another year at the most. But objective is just stay safe, stay healthy, and have a good weekend.
Yes. See you next week.
See you guys.